Hi everyone, this is the part 2 session of our Western Australia or WA funded contracts session. In this session we're going to be looking at how to enrol a student into a funded program for Western Australia. I'm going to be taking you through how to basically do an enrolment and also how to create a training plan for that for a trainee or apprentice as part of the session. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to students in your menu there, and you can see I've already got a student open here. This is our WA funded student, and we're going to go to the enrollments tab. Obviously, typically if you're creating a new enrollment, we would click new. If a student had completed your online enrollment form, they would come into your system obviously in enrollments, and they would be sitting here as application received. If you haven't already noticed, your fantastic new dashboards really clearly let you know straight away when you log in if you've got any new applications received. In this situation we have 210 applications. Oh my goodness, lots of work to do. But what we're going to do is jump back to that enrollment, and yeah, you'll note that enrollment status is application received. So I'm going to edit this enrollment. Obviously if you're going to create a new enrollment manually, you would use the new button, and if it was a new enrollment, obviously it's exactly the same form, but you're going to be filling it all out fresh. So in this situation we've already completed the program code, selected the program instance, the intake, set up the enrollment dates, and added who our employer is. So remember that employers are entered through companies in your SMS, same with agents. In this situation we'll just put no for LN and just keep that nice and simple. The last thing that you may want to consider when setting up your contract enrollments is whether there's a host employer. So I'm going to put test company 1 as the host employer. So again, host employers are also entered into companies. The only difference is you set whether it's a host employer or an employer or an agent, etc. So I'm going to go to the next page, and so the most important part of setting up your funded contract for Western Australia is getting the VETMIS contract information page right. So if you set this up right, all the information should flow through correctly for your training activity reporting, and you shouldn't have anything standing in the way of claiming your payments. So here we've set up our funding source ID. So obviously if you've got your contract set up right, you should have all your WA funding sources there already. In this way we're going to select NTA profile funded, and if you've set up that funded profile to map to a national funding source, that will also update with the selected option there as well. You'll notice that I just changed that option, and it has also changed the option there. So next thing we're going to do is come down to the contract section, because we've already got the contract set up on the program instance. It's pre-populated for us. When we select set our contract status to active, that will automatically set our contract status date. Our purchasing contract ID is also populated from our contract, and the schedule name is also automatically populated from a contract. So the only thing that you would typically really need to do there is set that to active when the contract is now active. You can set your for traineeships and apprenticeships, obviously you will need to set your training contract ID and client ID apprenticeship numbers from the WA system. The program information all needs to be filled out. So again, this is all required in your training activity reports. So you need to set whether that's a first time enrollment or not. Set the enrollment category ID there, what training ID type it is. In this case we'll set apprenticeship. set the income contingent loan liability there, vet fee maintenance, whether that's yes or no, and if there's an associated course ID, you would select that. That's typically only required where you have superseded courses and you're linking a new course that you've transitioned a student to a superseded course for reporting purposes, and in which case that is required to be completed. In terms of culture, that's our standard of vetness reporting fields, so I'm sure you're familiar with those. If we set disability to yes, obviously we have to complete what type of disability, and our employer contribution flag. If you set invoice to the employer on your enrollment initial enrollment tab, then that will automatically be set to Y. You won't need to set that. Under education, these are your standard of vetness education fields. So if we had currently at school yes, we might set vet in schools to yes, and in which case we've got a few more fields to fill out. Set some years here. And higher education, say we've got an Australian degree, and continue. So the training plan tab will only appear for programs that are set as apprenticeships, traineeships, or school-based apprenticeships. So, and these fields directly relate to the template that you're provided by the Western Australian Government for your training plans. So these fields are exactly the same as that you'll see on your training plan, and what this information is going to do is pre-populate your training plan for you. So you don't need to fill out the training plan on enrollment. You can come back and do that whenever you feel like it. However, yeah, that's there for when you do want to complete your training plan. And then your units tab is also pre-populated from your program. So if you've got anything not properly populated in this screen, for instance, our LMS course column here it means that it wasn't properly set up or populated in our program instance. So yeah, that's just an indicator that you might want to go back and configure your program instance correctly, so everything's pre-populating to make it nice and quick and easy for you to complete your enrollments. The only two things that typically you need to do on this page, and that's only required if it's an apprenticeship or a traineeship, is to set the responsibility for training. And again, this is going to populate, this information is going to populate on the training plan. So yeah, whether it's the RTO that's responsible or the employer or both, and just go down the column and complete that when you're ready to do your training plan. Obviously, if anything's incorrect or you need to change anything, maybe you need to change some delivery modes for a particular student, you can simply edit that and yeah, go and change any one of those fields as so. Last but not least, we've got our payments tab, and on the payments tab, that's where we will set our tuition fee and set any applicable concessions. So we might want to set a concession for the student for category 1, and that's going to apply that tuition to the student concession column there. So now that we've added concession, we now have a concession discount column, and now that we can see that concessions applied, the student fee has reduced quite markedly from the original $2,316 down to just $696. And then when we add in the resource fees and admin fees, you'll see here that that student fee has increased once we've added in the extra cost for resources and administration there. You can see here that we've got so basically if we've got multiple concession type identifiers mapped to a particular concession in our concessions on our contract. When we set that up, then we've got all those options to select from here. So you do need to set the correct fee exemption or concession that's relevant. In this situation, we're going to select healthcare card, remembering to always ensure that you complete that field if you're applying a concession or a fee waiver or an exemption, because it is required for to be reported to your state training authority. Last but not least, we've got our payment plan. So this is 100% upfront, so it's nice and simple. And down the bottom, we've got our summary of our funded contracts, subsidies, and the loadings, any loadings that we may want to add to that contract. So in this situation, we might add a location loading of 10%, and you'll notice that that now has been added to that student. And we've got our subsidy here, and expected subsidies there. So basically, once we've completed all that, we will submit our enrollment form and complete our enrollment, just remembering that at this point we've still got the enrollment set as application received. We might leave it as application received if we still need to check or get some further documentation on the eligibility for the student in terms of the concession, or if we're confident that we've already got all of that evidence or information, we can set that to application approved or to enrolled, and the system will then set up the finance model on that and make that set that contract up ready for claims as well once the student starts undertaking the training. So basically, once we submit that, that's all updated on our enrollment down here, and if we were ready to, we can also then generate a training plan for that student. And you'll note that now we've got our units all populated on that training plan, ready to submit to that student. That's just loading. So it's as simple as that. So you can print that, print or email that training plan to the student. So look, that's pretty much the end of our session 2 for funded contracts. If you've got any questions or queries, please feel free to reach out and let us know. Just send an email through to support@eskill.com.au, and our team will be really happy to help you out with any questions or queries you have in relation to funded contracts. Thanks for listening to me through the session, and we look forward to taking you through your next tutorial.